Hey folks, welcome to another episode of the Shut Up and Do It podcast. Place you can come and hang out with us while we go through all things real estate and business related with a focus on bringing you top quality speakers and topics, all who believe in a shut up and do it manner. I'm your host, Nick Allerud, creator of the Complete Deal Flow System and a principal with the AA Real Estate Group, a buyer here in Greater Boston and Southern New Hampshire, as well as Western PA. I'm pretty excited today to have someone new on the show. We have a gentleman named Bill Allen. Bill Allen is in the Nashville and Pensacola, Florida markets. He's in the South, well, essentially controls all of the Southeast. And he's from Blackjack Real Estate. He does 200 deals a year in wholesaling. He's great at systems, and he's a whole bunch of stuff where he focuses on building his culture and on leadership and leading his team. And he's done a heck of a job where now he's basically able to take himself out of that real estate business and put him into his mastermind and consulting business. So, hey, Bill, thanks for coming to the show, man.
Thanks for having me, Nick. I will say that controls the Southeast is definitely not something that I've ever heard before, because we definitely don't, but we are kind of like looking for deals around the Southeast. And if something comes along, we'll do it. So I love that, though. I'm going to probably steal it.
That sounds good. I mean, your assistant is the one who said it. I'm just going by what your assistant said. No.
Well, she probably would talk like that. That's why she gets paid.
Very cool, man. All right. We all want to hear your story, Bill. How did you get started in life, business, and then real estate?
Wow. Okay. So I'm not going to go back that far, but I have like an engineering background. When I was a kid, I was like, loved this entrepreneurship journey. Like that was big for me. I would like try to figure out how to turn $1 into $3 or $4. Ended up going to college, and my dad talked me into going into the Navy. So I got a Navy ROTC scholarship to school. I was an engineer. And then I couldn't figure out what to do in the Navy, but finally landed on becoming a pilot, because I got like a tour with everybody in the different summers, and the pilots seemed to work the least and have the most fun and be the most relaxed. So that's what I did. Got commissioned. I was able to get a master's degree, and then I flew for the Navy I was active duty for 15 years. And while I was doing it, I didn't think about any entrepreneurship, any of that stuff. All the things that excited me before just kind of went away. I just did my job, worked for the government, got my paycheck. And I was always investing and saving money and looking to become financially free. I wanted to be a millionaire one day. I didn't know when that was going to be. So I was investing in the stock market. And then I had a CO in college, a commanding officer in college, that said he bought a house at every duty station and made money. So that always put real estate in the back of my mind. And I ended up buying a house, renting it out when I left. And I moved 15 times in about 16 years. So it was a lot of moving around, and I started accumulating a small collection of rental properties. And that's when I saw my net worth go up and started thinking maybe real estate is something I should check out. So I got married, we got pregnant, and I said, okay, now I have 3 mouths to feed. I'm starting to have to speed this up. And I looked at my net worth and saw that real estate was making a change in it. And I thought that's a way to financial freedom, started learning about it, studying it, everything that I could do. I just spent all my downtime learning about real estate, and ended up buying a rental, fixing it up. And my realtor said, you could sell this and make some money. I sold it, made $43,000 on that first deal. And it was like half of my income for the whole year as a pilot. And I said, wow, this feels really good. Let's do it again. And I did it, one more time. And then I just said, okay, there's something here. Let me figure it out. And that was kind of the beginning of that journey of real estate and the fix and flip side. And then it turned into meeting a wholesaler who's doing hundreds of deals a year and saying, well, I could do that too. And then we kind of took off, went from 1 deal a year to 67 deals the first year, then 135 the year after that, then 187. And we've been somewhere around 175 deals the past 2 years. And so I've only been doing this like at that level for about 5 or 6 years now. So it's been exciting.
Very cool, Bill. So you mentioned you were moving all around and happened to pick up some rental properties. What initially sparked your interest there? And I'm sure everything went really well. You didn't have one bad egg there?
Well, I didn't really know what I was doing. So I was doing what he said. I would buy a house and then I would move out, and I had to kind of figure it out. So the first house I bought it, and then I just was watching a lot of HGTV at the time. So I started tearing out the spare bathroom to renovate it and do it all myself. And so I was the guy who was like, I was single guy at the time, didn't have a ton going on. I was a flight instructor in Pensacola, and I was just figuring stuff out. My uncle was a contractor, so I'd send him text messages. I'd watch stuff on YouTube. I grabbed the 1, 2, 3 like Home Depot book and started just trying to figure out what to do. So I moved out, put a tenant in there, and then I just bought another one, and I just kept doing that. So for me, I thought that financial freedom was $150,000 a year of like passive income along with a military retirement at this time. So military retirement is 20 years. You get half of your income from the military forever, and you get health insurance and all that stuff. So that was my plan. That's what I was going to do. And I didn't know anybody who made, at that time, who had made more than like $200,000 a year in their entire life. So like that was huge for me. You make 200 grand a year. That was my cap, right? The ceiling in my mind was 200 grand a year. So I said, well, if I, get 10 rental properties that produce $10,000 a month, and then, total, and then so I'm making 120,000 a year, and then I've got my military income, that'll be like 200 grand. I'll be rich. And by the time I'm, 50, 60, I'll be a millionaire. And so that was the journey in the beginning. So I never met somebody who's making $1 million a year, or $2 million a year, or $5 million. Like that world did not exist in my life at the time. So yeah, sure, I had some problems with rental properties and stuff. But the problem for me with rental properties is I put 20% down, I'd get a mortgage, and then I wouldn't have any more money. So I'd do like 1 or 2 a year. And so I don't have no patience. I want to do things really fast. And my net worth was starting to creep up faster than it was in the stock market, but it still just didn't seem fast enough, especially when I got married, had a kid, and said, okay, I want to be home now. I don't want to deploy all the time and do that stuff. And so that's kind of the transition that I had to make. So yeah, I had problems with rentals, people calling me, and tenants and toilets weren't my thing, but I was running out of money mostly. And then when I was flipping houses making like $45,000, I was like, whoa, this is amazing. Like, how many times can I do this in a year? Can I do this 10 times, 12 times, 20 times? And that's kind of what set off the journey.
Interesting. That's cool. I get into that because most of the people who say, well, I just started picking up one rental, and I'm like, oh, that's some good cash flow. And then they usually pick up a second or a third rental, and they realize they get into some terrible, terrible tenant issue where they can't get somebody out or something to that effect. But maybe you didn't have any of those nightmare stories.
Well, no, so I got to 10, and the problem that I was seeing was I was looking at my returns, like my true returns, right? And so I was seeing that I was making like 6 to 8% returns. And like when the air conditioning would go out, or there was a leak somewhere, I had to replace a refrigerator or something, like it would just kill like the cash flow, right? So I was seeing all the other benefits of it, but it just wasn't fast enough for me. And I think what I've realized about myself is I really like the velocity of the deals. The reason I wholesale, 200 houses a year is because I enjoy that. I don't think that I could do 2 commercial deals a year or 1 commercial deal a year, and then when it didn't go through, I would get really upset, or I'd be out a bunch of, it's just, I need velocity of deals. It's just, I know myself really well. And it was frustrating me. Like when I really ran the numbers, I made like 4% or 6% in a year. I look back like, what is going on here? And I have all this leverage and all these loans and stuff. I had like $800,000 in loans. So I was taking, more risk than I wanted to personally.
Sure. Do you still have that as an element of your portfolio today, though? Have you built a portfolio, or do you just strictly wholesaling and transactional?
Yeah. So I do. I have my general partner and limited partner in about 3,000 units of something right now. So I have a ton of like passive investments to help my active income. I want to really drop my depreciation. But each one of those rental properties in the last 3 years, when they came up for rent, because I remember I bought them before I knew what I was doing, a lot of them. I was learning. And so what I said when they come up for rent is, would I buy this property today at the price that I paid for it? And if the answer was no, then I would sell it. If the answer was yes, then I would keep it. And so I sold every single one of them when they came up and became vacant, because I was buying them too close to retail. And now as a marketer and a wholesaler, I know a lot more than I knew then. So I can get deals even today, even as the market appreciated, I could get deals cheaper than that now. So I started offloading them. I took the equity, invested back in the business, grew the business. So now all my active income, like you said, like my transactional income spits off to me personally. And then I go invest in other people's syndications, other people's deals. I help them raise money. So I've got like, a bunch of storage units and a bunch of apartment buildings that I'm a general partner and limited partner in. And I let the professionals handle that stuff, and I'll take my money and put it in those passive investments, let them do what they do best.
Very good. Yeah. One thing that we all impress upon, right, is transactional business is only good for so long, right? It's only good until you stop working, and then it's still transactional. So building the long-term wealth, either as a GP, LP, or even just picking up, small, low-price rentals in, in Southeast, or in our case, Western Pennsylvania, wherever you can, right? Just start to get some experience there to then launch yourself into the bigger deals. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing that I think is pretty cool that I like is I feel like I've been able to turn my real estate business, my flipping and wholesaling business, into a bit of a passive income for me. So like I get paid every Friday, but I don't actually work in that company anymore. I have a COO that runs it. So when that business, the lights turn off on that business, you're right. But right now, I don't actually trade time for money in that company anymore. I trade time for money in a different active company that I'm enjoying working in. So I've been able to almost kind of like hedge that. And I think there's a couple people that have been able to do it really well, where they don't have to put a lot of time into it. And so like we used to meet every other week, me and my COO, for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. And we're down to about every week now. We try to meet every week now with what's going on, just because we're kind of making some changes and adjustments and just watching things a little closer. And I want to be a little more involved. But, ultimately that's turned out to be a great, multiple six-figure passive income stream for me, where I don't have to put in my time. And I have some great team members, staff members, stuff like that do that. And I can focus my efforts elsewhere. Now, you're right. When that business shuts down, it's active income from the company, but I'm pretty passively involved in that. I'm not pulled in a ton, which is
Very
nice.
Cool. Very, very cool. And that's the dream question, right? So when you started your wholesale business, when you started saying, hey, there's something here with this real estate thing, $43,000, this is cool. I can do this again and again and again. What were your first 2 or 3 steps? Well, number one, when did you know you needed to kind of scale, right? And number 2, what were the next 3 things that you did to try to get yourself on a scaled position?
Yeah. So I had no idea. Scaling, it took me I did that first flip, and then I was working in it, right? I was working in that flip. I was doing some of the work. I did some of the electrical work. I was doing some of that stuff. And then I sold that house, and then I went, okay, what do I do now? I have to go find another one. It took me 6 months to find the next one. It took me 6 months to sell that one. So that's every year I would do one. And it was kind of like this side hustle. And what I realized is I was working a second job. I was active duty pilot. I was flying full time. We had a baby now at home, and I was doing this nonstop. So that's when I said, there's got to be this better way, right? I've heard people have systemized this business. They're doing hundreds of deals, never seeing them. I thought they were lying. I listen to podcasts just like this, where you hear people talk about it, and you're like, it can't happen for me. But it started to make sense. I said, okay, I'm an engineer. I understand systems and process and procedures and stuff like that. I can figure out how to do this. And so my initial goal was to flip 12 houses in a year. That first year I said, I'm going to flip 12 houses. Well, I needed to get around somebody who already knew how to do that, because I didn't know anybody who was doing more than 5 to 10 deals. Local RIA I would go to, the big dog was doing 10 houses a year. Just because the people that are doing 100 houses a year I'm sorry, they're just not going to the local RIA meeting, right? They're working on their companies. They're building their business, their brand. They're doing different things. They might have somebody that's going to that meeting, but it's that was the peak, right? That cap was 200,000, 10 deals a year. And so I didn't know anybody. So I found, a way to get, I basically paid to get in the right room, to get around people that were doing more than me, and just replicating that. So I was doing it once a year, but what I said was, I have to figure out how to work less, because I'm working so much. It wasn't necessarily about scaling really big. It was about working less. And so my mentor, I got a call with him. I said, I want to do 12 houses in a year. And he said, okay, let me show you what my business is like. And I was like, whoa, I don't want to hire anybody. I'm not hiring anybody. I'm scared of doing this. I definitely don't want to have a staff and be responsible, put food on their table and their kids and their families and all that stuff. No. This is about me. And he's like, okay, well, you're having trouble doing one house a year right now, but you want to do one a month? How are you going to do that without help? And I was like, I don't know. I'll hire some contractors and other people to help me, and they'll do it. And he's like, okay, it doesn't seem to make sense. It doesn't add up. Go think about it. Get over the fact that you might have to actually hire somebody, and then come back to me and we'll talk about how to do that. So I took a week. I talked to my dad. My dad ran an engineering company, and he said, son, one of the best feelings you'll ever have is actually making those payments, paying somebody's salary, putting food on their table. You're thinking about it the wrong way. And so I listened to him, and I came back and I said, okay, let's do it. And again, my goal was just to flip 12 houses. And we did 67. I flipped 12 houses. We did 55 wholesales that year in 8 months. So for me, I didn't know that I was planning on scaling this thing really big until I started to see success. I hired that first person. It took me 4.5 months to find my first wholesale deal. So that was a challenge, right? I spent $22,500, 4.5 months into my 6-month plan is when that first $10,000 hit the bank. And that was when everything changed. That's when the light bulb went on, and I went, I could do this over and over and over again. And so that's when I was able to say, okay, let's go scale something, and figure it out. But I feel like I organically scaled it over time. I've seen a lot of people try to go, throw the gas on, let's scale it. And for me, it was just one hire at a time. And it was one new marketing channel or a new market, when we were ready or right before we were ready. We just kind of grew into it. So for me, I feel like when I look back at 5 years of growth, it looks like it was overnight success to most people on the outside. But I'll tell you, when I was living it, from 4:30 in the morning to 7 a.m. before my family got up. Then I went and flew for 10 to 12 hours. Then I came home, ate dinner, put my son to bed, hung out with my wife for like 10 minutes, then went back in the office for another 3 hours. It was not fast. And so it was just organic growth where I built the right team, brought on the next right person, and we were able to just kind of grow and scale. And believe me, if you asked me then if I was be doing like 180, 200 houses a year, I'd say there's no chance, right? So it's just been slow growth. So hopefully I have a long-winded answer to your question.
No, it's very good. The more direct question would be, what was your first hire? What position?
Yeah. So my first hire, I think, caveat this, and every time somebody asks me that, I caveat it because if you're listening to this, it might not be the right hire for you. Everybody has that different first right hire. It might be a bookkeeper, it might be a project manager, it might be an admin person, it might be an assistant. It might be a salesperson. Everybody's got something a little bit different. For me, I was doing some direct response marketing, and I was flying for 10 or 12 hours a day. So when my phone rang, I could not answer it. And I also hate to answer the phone. I hate talking on the phone, period. Like, hate it. And so I knew that I needed somebody to answer the phone, put in the leads, and set me up for the appointments around my calendar and my schedule. And I also had some office work. I had like 1 or 2 flips going on that they could put on lock boxes and turn on utilities and do that kind of stuff. So I hired basically an all-around office assistant. I called her the lead manager, but she really did a lot of other things. She did QuickBooks, so she kept the books, got everything into QuickBooks instead of like off my Excel spreadsheets. She did lock boxes. She called to turn on utilities. She answered the phone. And what I realized was I was slowing myself down because I didn't want to answer the phone. That meant I didn't want to send any more mail. And so when she started answering the phone, I just cranked it up. I don't care how many times the phone rings if I don't have to answer it. And if I go on vacation or I'm going out to a mastermind meeting or I'm doing something, then I have someone there that it never stops. So that was my first hire. And I think it worked really well for me, but somebody else who's a little bit different might hire a salesperson and they talk on the phone or something like that. So.
Sure. That's fantastic. As you started to grow then, and you had that first hires, and I guess I would call her an office manager, lead manager, right? Did you... Yep. It's curious because a lot of times the people who are like QuickBooks accountants, they're not quite good on the social aspect over the phone. I mean, just, personality types, but she seemed good at everything. You found like one of those rare people, huh?
Yeah. It's interesting. She is kind of a chameleon, but at that time, like I was not using personality profiling. I wasn't looking at, I didn't know what I was doing. So the story really goes, I put an ad up on Craigslist that I got some help writing from my mentor. Put it up on Craigslist. I hired somebody. 2 weeks later, her husband got a job from Pensacola or she was living in Mobile, got a job in Virginia. And so 2 weeks after I'm training her, I'm taking all this time to pour into her. She's like, I got to go. I'm leaving. I quit. I was like, you got to be kidding me. Like, this is my first experience, right? So what do? I just get back on the horse. And I was actually going out to look at a house. And there was another wholesaler that I said, hey, would you like to come out and take a look around the house and see? I'll talk you through the repairs. I had flipped a couple myself. And she said, okay. And so while she was there, I asked her a little bit about her wholesaling business, what's going on. And she's like, I'm kind of struggling to get leads. I don't have a lot of money, these kind of things. And I said, okay, well, you kind of understand a little bit of the background. Let me learn a little bit more about you. And then I said, would you be interested in kind of working with me? Because I have some money, but I don't have a lot of time. You have a lot of time, don't have a lot of money. Come on board. I'll pay you. Here's the structure and let's try it out. So I didn't have a resume. I didn't put up an ad this time. I was just like, there was something about this. Like, I'm a believer. So I feel like there was something here it was just the right time. Her and her husband prayed about it, came back and said, okay, let's do it. And so that was it. And she worked for me for about a little over 3 years. She has done a little bit of everything inside the company. She is the reason why I'm as successful as I am right now, because she helped me build that foundation and really put in the time and effort and work. And she was always determined to be better and grow, which is, I think, really important in that. But I see her personality profile now. If I'd given her a personality profile test, I wouldn't have hired her. And so it was, I don't know, one of those things. You can call it luck. You can call it preparation meets opportunity. You can call it whatever you want. But really, I think that it was a huge success story between the two of us. And she's since gone and opened her own company now, a bookkeeping business with her best friend. And they do some accounting for real estate investors and other small businesses. So she quit to pursue her dream, and really cool stuff. I'm incredibly happy for her. And so I just kind of, I don't know, maybe got lucky.
That's a good one. We say there are no coincidences, right, Bill? So you met her for a reason and she helped you get to where you were. You mentioned something that was a really good hot button that I've also experienced, right? So when we're just kind of a solopreneur working it with ourselves or maybe one other person, we don't realize just how much more they drive us, right? Like how much more now we are engaged in their well-being, and we have to be like on our game 10x what we were before, just to make sure that now we're feeling it, right? Like I feel like that was just, it becomes, instead of just 1 + 1 = 2, it's more like a 1 + 1 = 10 factor. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the interesting thing I think now about, I have probably over 40 people that work for me in the 2 different companies now. And, they drive me, like you said, a lot more than I would potentially drive myself. Like I showed up to a couple of our EOS sessions, our last couple quarterly sessions in Blackjack, and they're driving everything. I'm the visionary of the company, and some of their goals are higher than mine. And what I found myself doing is I went from this like wanting to make more money to wanting to get some time freedom to then more of this impact. And I think the impact side, I think that's the transition that a lot of us go through. And when we get to that impact side, it's like we don't need any more money, really. We don't need any more things. But the impact is like, how many people in my company can I support? Can I grow a business that now can support 20, 30, 40 different families and be really happy about it? Like the people that show up, they are all in. Like they honestly treat the company probably as good, if not better than I do. And to see that is really cool, because what it does is it forces me to become innovative, to get creative, to figure out how to grow something. I want them to reach financial levels that they've never thought possible, and different achievements that they've never been able to unlock, and things like that. And so when you can see that in your staff, my dad was right when he said it, right? Like that is the game changer right there. And that's what drives me to get up early, to stay up late, to continue to put the work into the business now. Like, to be perfectly honest, like if you're listening, I was making more money when it was just me and like 3 other people. And now what I see is I do a lot less work now. I still make pretty good money in that company, but I built it up, and it's an actual business that runs without me, that's constantly running and working. Like right now, they're doing deals right now. They're talking to sellers right now. They are going on appointments. People are making offers. Like all that stuff is happening while I'm sitting here with you talking. And so that's an exciting part of kind of creating this business. And I can see why it gets addictive, but seeing that growth in them, like it drives me to want to continue to figure out the next thing. Like what is the next innovation that I can make? And the same thing in the other company. It's like my staff, we sat in our quarterly or our annual meeting in January in California. And I said, are you guys sure you want to do this? Like this can be a lot of work for us. Like I feel good where we are. You guys want to grow like this? And they're like, yeah, we do. And so I said, all right, I'm willing. Let's go. Let's do it. And it's exciting. So.
Very cool, Bill. When you were starting out, and you have a COO and you have people now doing this for you, but when you were starting out, where did you locate and how did you culture the best talent that you could find?
When I was starting out, it was Craigslist. Like every single person I hired was Craigslist or a potential referral, like somebody in my world where I saw potential talent. There's a guy right now who runs a marketing company, and he runs it for a lot of successful investors. He started working for me, and to see his growth and involvement has been amazing. But he was just a guy that I met at like local meetups and RIAs, and he was asking me questions, and he was constantly, this is just like Didi, my first hire, he's just constantly like asking for things and wanting to grow. And I just saw potential there. And I said, hey, how about just coming and doing dispositions for me? And he's like, all right, let's talk about that. Cause he was wholesaling. And so I said, come on in. And I think we can go like you said, 1 + 1 = 10, like come in and let's blow it up. And he did. So I was just out there looking for talent at that time. And so now, I don't recommend that now. Like I definitely don't recommend Craigslist and just dropping an ad up. And we have an actual system. Right now, we hire everybody off Indeed, but I have a budget. I have like an HR department. We have ads. We have personality profiling system that we use. And we have a system. We have like a funnel that comes through. So we're not talking to, we get 100 applications a day from admin positions. It's like, we can't do that. I've got to filter that down to 2 or 3 a day, then we can start actually having conversations with them. So we have a structure now, but to answer your question, Craigslist, and I had no process and system in the beginning. I think deep down though, for everybody that's listening, is the biggest advice that I can give you is to trust your gut. And maybe not when it's like really good, but definitely when something's off. Every time that I've gone against that, like I looked at the personality profile, looked at their resume, had that interview with them, and I thought I was like 80, 90% there. And there was that feeling where I was like, I'm just not sure if this is the right person. That's where I failed. And it's got to be like this absolute yes. Like there's no question for me, especially in bigger positions, because we've read a couple studies and things, and we've done some presentations on hiring, and a bad hire will cost you about 15 times their annual salary in your time and input. I mean, that is insane, right? Even a $30,000 a year person is costing you $450,000 as a business. Lost opportunity, so many things that can happen. So that's my biggest thing. And somebody once told me, like, you have to do the beach test. So would you like to be on a beach vacation with them for a week? Like, is this the kind of person that you want to hang out with and spend time with? Like, you don't have to be best friends with everybody, but can you stand them for a week at the beach? Not just like spending every second with them, but inviting them there. And every person that I look back on that hasn't worked out, I'm like, yeah, that's a hard no on that person from day one. So have that gut check and then maybe ask some of those questions.
Cool. Interesting. How is Blackjack as it is right now, how do you have that structured, Bill?
I'm the visionary. I've got an integrator who's the COO. So he runs all the day-to-day operations. I've got a sales director. So my sales manager runs the lead intake staff. So all the people answering the phones. I have 3 people that answer the phones. And then they also manage all the salespeople. So I have acquisitions reps. I have 4 acquisitions reps, and we're primarily closing over the phone. We do occasional in-person appointments now, but we started closing over the phone about 6 months ago. So we had a little bit of a leg up on a lot of the people that this pre-COVID stuff. So we were trying to transition to that model and figure it out. And then we have a sales trainer in the company. So he does only sales training. So our sales manager is an analytical person who understands like zeros and ones and numbers and KPIs. And then our sales trainer is more on the, let me work with the sales team and the sales staff to figure out techniques and script and listen to their calls and give them feedback. Because what we found is we tried to have one person for that, but most people and sales trainers are not good with the data and details. So we separated those 2. And then we have an operations department who does transaction coordination and dispositions. So we moved our dispositions person from underneath the sales team over to the operational department. So I have an operational director who runs that team. I have a transaction coordinator, and then I have a dispositions manager. And so they work in there. But the dispositions guy sits on the sales training calls to understand the business-to-business sales aspect of it. And then we have a marketing team. We have a marketing director. So I have a chief marketing officer in the company. We do all of our marketing in-house, pay-per-click, Facebook ads, all that stuff. When we got big enough, we started bringing it all in-house instead of third parties. And then I have a finance department. So I have a CFO and then a bookkeeper. So we brought all the bookkeeping in-house. When I bought the other company, we decided to bring all the bookkeeping in-house for both companies. And the bookkeepers, like part-time bookkeepers that we had, we kind of let them go at the end of the year last year. And I think that's it.
Very cool. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. And it's funny how we all sort of end up in the same place once we start to learn how the departments lead, right? It's really interesting. Yeah. You said you check in with your COO once every 2 weeks or weekly. How does he or she, and then how do you kind of keep tabs on KPIs and what's going on with the company? How do you guys hold accountabilities?
So we run off of EOS, Entrepreneur Operating System, a book called Traction by Gino Wickman. So we run off of that system, and he does the weekly L10 meetings. I'm not on them as the visionary. So he runs the weekly L10s. There's a company scorecard, and then each department, the marketing department, the sales department, the operations, they each have their own weekly meetings that have even like deeper KPIs. And then, so all that stuff kind of funnels up to the main meeting that he runs. And then when him and I talk, we just really talk about like big issues, big problems, big things that he needs my input on. I trust him now to the point where I don't need to look at that stuff. I have a deal tracker and I can jump into the L10 meeting and see where the KPIs are, where we are. I also ask that each department gives me a weekly report. And it's really for the whole team. So our sales team gives out their weekly report, like what appointments did I go on? How many contracts am I expecting? What's in negotiation? What did I close? How many appointments? Those kind of things. And then the sales manager sends out a big thing for the lead intake reps. So it's, how many phone calls did we get? How many were answered live? How many callbacks did we get? Like how much dust are we kicking up? How many ringless voicemails did they send to try to follow up with people? Like more of the details. And then also the marketing department sends more of like the leads. So Facebook in this city produced this many leads. This one was good. This one was bad, wrong number. I just want like a snapshot once a week to get that. And we're moving to a new kind of dashboard CRM system where we'll all be able to kind of see the same thing real time. So that's the next step in the next evolution. So we have like a programmer on staff that is working on a lot of different things for us now on that kind of stuff.
So that'll be a custom engine then, sounds like, that custom dashboard. Good.
Yeah, I've had trouble finding the thing that works for us, just frankly because we're in too many markets. Like the CRMs that we're in multiple markets where I need like 4 salespeople to have access. And when they're all on the phone, they can go to any markets. They're in like different workspaces and stuff inside Podio. It's not working out for us as we continue to grow. So we've kind of been using workarounds for the last couple of years, and we're just kind of got tired of it.
Amen, Bill. I mean, I'm just going to share that with all my listeners too. If everyone who's taken up this challenge still has challenge, right? Because they're building it for their business, and all of our businesses are different, and we're always going to be like, why can't they just do this? And it's like frustrating beyond all imagination.
Yeah, I mean, I can see it from their standpoint for sure. Like, I know you can't win as a CRM provider, software provider, things like that. Like, so I was a test pilot for the Navy. So I went to test pilot school in England. I was a test pilot in Pax River, Maryland for a couple of years. And all we looked at is the human workload. Like, we're always trying to decrease human workload, and we're looking at workarounds. Like, why did I have to press this button and this button? Why can't I just press this button once? Like, why is this here? This is dangerous. This button should not be here. I could actually turn off an engine in case instead of this. So everything that we look at, we're like, how can we make things easier and simpler? And what you just said, it's like every business is a little bit different, and the requirements that come in are so vast and strange and different for everybody that you've got to take the 80% solution if it's going to be a commercial off the shelf type system. And it's just the way it is. And be okay with that when you're small. Like, my recommendation for most people that are just getting started is get yourself a piece of paper and a pencil, and that's your CRM for a while. Then I went to Excel, and then I went to Google Sheets so I could share it with multiple people. And then I went to a CRM because if I don't have any leads, I don't need a CRM. Like, nobody's calling me, like, focus on getting some calls. So now we're at a point where we're so big that the change from one thing to another has to be so significant that we're willing to scrap all the things that we do, all the systems and processes that we use right now that everybody knows in the whole company, to move over somewhere else. Like, that is a huge train that has to be moved over. So we're in so much pain now that we're moving the train. So
wow. Yeah. Big deal. Big deal. What kind of things right now, Bill, are you excited about as a visionary? What have you got going on in the pipeline?
Man, I'm excited about a lot of things. I'm excited in my real estate business. I'm excited about what's going on in the world right now. Like, I hate to say that, and I don't want anybody to take that as like opportunistic or anything like that, but everybody knows that we live in a distressed world in the real estate business. Like, the off-market type properties that we buy, when distress turns up, like, the houses are not becoming any more distressed right now. The time passes the same way it does, but the people are becoming a little bit more distressed and have the potential for that. And that means that we can help more people, and in helping more people get out of issues and things like that, we can actually do more business. So I think any visionary is excited about change. Like, they love change. Whereas the other people, like the people that are working for you, they don't like change. They don't want to change. A lot of them, they're like, no, this feels uncomfortable. This coronavirus is scary. Where all the rest of us are like, opportunity. Whoa, this is like, something is happening. What can we do? Where can we go? So I'm excited about when the cheese is moving, I can go like kind of try to sniff it out. So I'm excited about that. We're kind of talking about some different ways that we can adapt and adjust. And I have such a great team that I know that we can do anything. I know we're able to do anything in that business. So that's probably like the thing that I'm most excited about in the real estate business, because things are not always going to be the same. And I feel like they've been the same. And it's also a little bit of a test to me, because if you listen to my story, it's 5 or 6 years ago that I came in. So a lot of people are saying, like, these people that came in post-crash, it's all been easy for them. They can, of course, this guy can do 200 deals because everything's been sunshine and rainbows for him since he came in. I don't think that's exactly true, but this is going to give, like, any change in the marketplace is going to give me the opportunity to prove myself. And if I know anything about myself, it's the fact that I like that. I want to be the guy who gets the basketball at like 2-3 seconds left. I want to figure out, I want to constantly be evolving and adjusting and growing personally. So that's what I'm excited about in the real estate business for sure. It's going to be good.
Cool. All you damn new kids coming into this market without going through a crash. Gosh, we're the same age. It's fine. But I still get to do that to people who haven't lived through the first crash.
Yeah. I mean, in 2008, I bought a house in 2006 in San Diego for $395,000 as a 700 square foot condo, like $550 a square foot, 80% first mortgage, 20% second, no money down deal. Right. And then in 2009, I sold it for $200,000. So I bought it for $385,000, $185,000 loss. Fortunately, the government had a bailout program that saved my butt on that one. Because without that, I'd have been in big trouble. And if I had bought it 4 days later, I wouldn't have been able to qualify for that program. So that was my experience. And I still bought a house in 2009 before I even sold that one. So I just didn't know what I was doing. I just had no clue.
You got dinged. That counts, man. That counts. So you know, it only counts if you get dinged.
Oh, I've been dinged plenty of times in a good market. So I just think that what I've learned over these past few years is how to be a good business owner. And I think people, a lot of times, they think this is real estate, but it's not. It's about people. It's about systems. It's about operations. It's sales, marketing, and operations. That's it. Like it's any business. Remove real estate. It can be anything that we're dealing in. And that's what I feel like I've gotten a full-on PhD in business from like jumping into this thing. And like I tell people a lot of times, you can take all my money, you can take everything, leave me with my knowledge, my experience, drop me on the corner anywhere, and I'm going to figure something out. I'll be able to turn it around, be able to grow something. So the confidence that's changed in like going from doing a couple deals to building an actual company and business is massive. So that's what I'm excited about, is opportunity to do new things. And I just have to learn how to say no to stuff. That's the hardest part.
Very, very, very cool, Bill. What's one solid, you know what, before we even get to that question, let me ask you about culture in your business. Who controls and runs and keeps that culture alive? And what do you guys do? What are some things you guys do?
So the culture comes from the top. Like you own, run, and lead the culture in your business, period. Like the core values come from you as the business owner. Definitely in this, like, I don't know, maybe Walmart could argue that they're a big enough company that the core values can be adjusted based on the board or, you know, the majority stakeholders. But as especially small business, like you own the culture and you have to drive that, and you cannot let it get out of control, because that is the thing. Like that's the only thing that matters in my mind. Like culture is so important. So I own it. I am in charge of it. But my COO, so there's leadership and management. Like most people are just see like management. All they think about like 80% manage, 20% leadership. You've got to get that somewhere in the middle. You don't want to just overlead your people and undermanage them. That's what I was doing before my COO came in. I was just leading them and there's no accountability. And then you don't want just over management either. So it's somewhere in the middle. So I think me and him, I bring in a ton of the leadership side of things, the culture like you're talking about. He brings in a lot of the management, but he has to be a solid puzzle piece culture fit for me, because he's handling the day-to-day culture. So I would say like it comes from me, but him and I share so much of it that we're so much alike in that culture fit that he can project it to the team and I don't have to worry about it day to day. So he is the one who's there every day, talking to them, making sure, and then every leadership team member has to have those same core values too. So our core values are the foundation and like bedrock of the business. And if people don't fit those, they're out the door really fast or never getting in. Like I really thought of this company. I want people that are inside of there so happy where they are that there's no open spots for people to get in, but people want to come into the organization. So they're like beating the door down, but we're saying, sorry, we're full. We can't have anybody in here. So the way I think about all the companies that I run. And, you know, I had to let some people go recently in my other company, 7-Figure Flipping, because that gut thing wasn't working. And I just didn't feel like we were a culture fit. I didn't feel like it just wasn't working. And it's the hardest thing for me. I'm an emotional decision maker. The hardest thing for me to do is fire somebody. It's so hard. I will let people walk on me for a little while. I know this about myself. And it was really, really a challenge. I'll say if anybody is challenged on firing somebody, go listen to the last 2.5 minutes of episode 7 of The Last Dance right now with Michael Jordan. You listen to the last 2.5 minutes of episode 7, you can fire anybody. So it's all about leadership and the fact that and it's exactly what we're talking about. We set the tone, we set the culture. And in fact, Nick, I'm going to send you that. I have it like ripped onto my phone. I listen to it all the time. I'm going to send it to you right after this. It's amazing.
I would love that. That's awesome, Bill. This is cool. This episode has been kind of refreshing a little bit. A lot of you folks are hearing a lot of technical strategies in real estate and technical strategies in business and how to kind of, you know, eliminate expenses and increase income and deal flow and that sort of thing. We've only had one or two, and Bill, certainly you've gone through the struggles. You've gone through it as a solopreneur. You've hired, you know, what your first hire, which just like all of us, we didn't really know what the heck we were doing. And as you've grown, I think that engineering aspect, that background for you definitely helped, right? Kind of build out those processes and procedures as well as you kind of continue to grow. Do you still do that to this day?
Yeah, you know, the engineering thing is interesting because I've had a lot of people say, I'm so surprised that you're as successful in entrepreneurship as you are, because most people that are engineers, they get caught up in the details. Like they want to be perfect and things like that. So what I've realized is I think there's like an entrepreneurial type engineer that like they understand the mechanics, but they don't necessarily like have to do everything themselves. And then there's the engineer who just like cannot get over the fact that like they're not doing it. They're not understanding how everything works all the time. So I have to pull myself out of that a lot. But yeah, I think like the systems and process procedures, stuff like that. Like I can pick things up pretty fast. Like I can understand how things work pretty fast, even if I don't know them. Like I got in that first mastermind meeting and I knew like I'll figure out how to get to the top of this place. Like I'm going to figure out how to go up this ladder because I push myself really hard. So yeah, I think it helped me, but I think it's a little bit more of that. Like some of us have this entrepreneurial spirit and I had no idea that was active in me until like when it came out, is like, like watch out, I'm in trouble. So now I look at who I want to be is a lot more of a visionary entrepreneur than it is an engineer, because I've gotten the taste of the other side and it's a lot sweeter just to like come up with ideas and let other people implement them. And so I've gotten a little bit spoiled. So, but I think it did help with process procedure. The people that have trouble with the details, that's where you really need to bring in somebody like me or somebody like Nate, my COO, to come in earlier than I did. Like I was able to get it to a point where we did $2.5 million before he came in, like we were doing hundreds of deals a year and it was all screwed up. But he came in and said, hey, I can make this even better. And we actually squeezed an extra $1 million out on the same number of deals with him, coming in with the right people, the right culture, the right staff, that kind of stuff.
Fantastic, Bill. That's good. If people wanted to get a hold of you or look you up, how's the best way?
So I'm on like Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all these areas. I think it's Bill Allen REI. So at Bill Allen REI. And then my company that I spend all the time in is sevenfigureflipping.com. You can go there and just send me a message. That's
pretty cool. Yep. That's a national real estate mastermind, right?
It is. Yeah. We have a couple hundred people. It's interesting. It's the one I joined when I got started. I was listening to a podcast. This guy was flipping 150 houses a year. And I said, the word 7-figure, I think really got my attention because like I said, I had only known somebody who was doing like 200,000 was like the cap. That was it. And to hear 7 figures, and they had this like, in the beginning, they had this like race to the first person to hit 7 figures. And so if you put me in a competition, I'm going to try to win. So I think it really pushed me to grow faster. Like you asked about scaling, I feel like it pushed me to grow. And look, I recommend everybody go out there and find something. Like I was very negative on coaching, training, paying for masterminds, paying for things. Like there was this stigma out in the free world of Facebook and online forums and stuff like that. And I had a library card. I wouldn't even buy a book. And I still have my library card, by the way. I love reading on Overdrive on Audible. It's free. So I'm still a little bit cheap. But see, and that's how you become financially free, right? You figure out income and expenses. So, but I think that there's different, like my recommendation for anybody is like, go find your place, like your tribe, your people. Where do you fit? Because like we're not a fit for like 90% of the people. Like it was just not. And we get a ton of people that, apply or want to come in and every group's similar, right? There's a group out there, someplace out there. What I will say is go get educated and don't be afraid to spend some money on education, put in time. Maybe it's time or it's money to a mentor, something like that, because we don't need to reinvent the wheel in this business. And I'll be the first one to say that we're not for everybody. It's, we know who like our core tribe is, and there's some great mastermind groups and mentorship programs and everything out there. There's also some really crappy ones. So it's our kind of mission to put the crappy ones out of business and just get the word out there that it's okay to join in forces with somebody else. Like don't reinvent the wheel. I have not had an original idea in real estate ever. I'm a Frankenstein model. I take what other people are doing and just try to do it better. And I just bolt things onto my company and make it work for me.
That's it, Bill. Once again, if folks, you heard it, masterminds are certainly way, and you guys have heard me talk. Most of the people we have on here are part of masterminds throughout the country. And as Bill mentioned, there's definitely some good ones out there. And Bill is the proud runner of one of them. So if you guys are finding yourselves in that zone where you want to take the next step and next leap, you guys can look up Bill. You can go to, is it sevenfigureflipping.com? Is that the best one?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And also they can reach you. You said Facebook, Instagram, all that good stuff.
Yeah, my team is telling me that I have to figure out how to grow my Instagram following because I have like 2 to 5 friends. So it's Bill Allen REI. So if you're on Instagram, right now I'm doing like this live challenge where I go for a minute each day and talk about one thing that's working for me per day and one thing that's not working right now that I need to work on. So hopefully just adding value out there to the world. So they're making fun of me. So
I'm going to take that advice too, because I have the same. I'm sometimes on Facebook. I'm definitely not on Instagram, and everybody's telling me to get on Instagram. But now everybody's telling me to get on TikTok and do some recipes and dance a little bit and sing into my phone. It's like I don't have time for this.
Yeah, I tell you, I am probably like, I'm at least 5 or 6 years behind the trends, but when you run like an information business, like a coaching and mastermind business, like my team is like, what are you doing? You need to get on here. I was like, I don't understand this platform. Like, if you teach me how to do it, I'll use it. So I'm learning how to use it. I'm also learning how to use YouTube, and Facebook is pretty much like, I don't know. I'm maxed out on friends there. So come follow me on Instagram. And that's where I'm going. I'm learning it, and I'm going to be doing cool stuff on there, which is probably going to stop me from doing stuff on Facebook. It's just the way it is.
Gotcha. Good stuff, Bill. Thank you so much for coming on today, brother. It tons of value, and this is going to go into our scaling session. So any other final parting words from your side? Any sort of big lessons for people?
Now, if we're going to talk about scaling, like that's where it's going to go. I think the biggest thing that people are going to want to think about is don't go crazy. I've seen people come into our mastermind group. I've seen people start business. I've seen people like hire 5 or 6 people on day one. They try to like replicate my business from the start because they have a bunch of money or they can see the path. Like, scale responsibly. Like, go one by one. Like, that's my biggest advice to people is that's how you really get hurt and bit in this business. Like, let your business continue to fund the growth for itself and do that. And obviously just get out there and take some action. Like the engineer, the problem is a lot of times they'll learn how everything works and then go do something. Go do it, come back, go keep going, make mistakes. So that's it. Thanks for having me.
One might say, shut up and do it.
That's right. Nailed it.
So we got our tagline. Folks, thank you so much for taking part in another episode of the Shut Up and Do It podcast. We bring as much value as we can by bringing top quality guests and speakers. Bill, you have been awesome to come on today and to share your business of how you scaled yourself and how you got into your own businesses, and now how you've converted a very active and tough business into more of a passive income stream for yourself while you're focusing on your mastermind. So thanks for all your shares today, man. Be sure, if you're listening, crash the like and subscribe buttons below. I'm still learning the YouTube verbals. Crash, smash the buttons below, and you can get notified when we have new episodes coming out. And if you are listening to this during COVID-19's quarantine, or as we're going through, the AA Real Estate Group is putting out our bi-weekly webinar series, also virtual REI networking. Be sure to check out our Facebook page, AA Real Estate Group, and register for the next one that we have out. We're trying to keep track of everything that's happening with the government incentives, with self-employed individuals in all different industries, and of course, how to get the strategies back up and running in this opportunistic, don't want to use that word, but this environment that is coming, as Bill mentioned, is going to be very, very different. And while we can impact so many more lives, and once the medical scare is over, and it will be over, there's going to be a massive wealth shift in the next 24 to 36 months. And we want everyone here to be a part of it. Follow along with us, AA Real Estate Group on the Facebook page. Bill, thanks for coming on today, my man.
Thanks for having me, Nick. Appreciate it.
That's awesome. See you all in the next one.